Hey everyone, welcome back to Iraqi Dinar News. Buckle up, because what's happening right now inside Iraq's financial system is sending a shockwave across the global Forex market. The headlines you're about to hear aren't speculation, they mark a defining moment in Iraq's journey toward full currency reform. We're talking about a move so bold that analysts around the world are calling it the biggest shift in Middle Eastern monetary policy in over a decade. If you've been following Iraq's dinar story, today's update changes everything. From new exchange mechanisms to IMF-approved frameworks, the pieces of a long-awaited transformation are finally locking into place. So, grab a seat, hit that like button, and stay till the end, because what we're about to unpack could completely rewrite how you see Iraq's economy, global oil trade, and the future of currency alignment in 2025. The financial world woke up this week to news that Iraq has quietly activated a new currency contract framework, effectively introducing a dual-rate model that separates the public market rate from a higher institutional contract rate. That sentence might sound technical, but its implications are massive. It means Iraq is now testing an internal exchange value that doesn't yet appear on public Forex screens, but is already being used in select international trade agreements. To the average observer, this might look like a local policy adjustment. To those watching closely, it's the launch pad for something far greater, the revaluation phase that Iraq has been preparing for since stabilizing its reserves and reforming its banking network. Economists are now calling this move a controlled ignition, the kind of internal trial that usually happens just before a nation's currency steps onto the global stage. So, what exactly does a contract rate mean for Iraq's economy? Imagine Iraq sells oil to a trading partner, and instead of settling entirely in US dollars, part of that transaction is executed in dinar, but not at the normal rate. Instead, it's exchanged using a pre-agreed stronger internal value. That is the contract rate, a benchmark Iraq can use to evaluate and standardize future trade in its own currency. This isn't just a test for convenience. It's a deliberate step toward currency sovereignty, an effort to make the dinar a globally respected settlement option instead of a domestic note tied to the dollar. What's more fascinating is that several of Iraq's reconstruction and infrastructure projects are now reportedly being settled under this model, signaling confidence from the top financial authorities that the new value system can hold under pressure. Financial analysts are calling this development a turning point in Iraq's modern history. For years, Iraq's monetary authority has operated under international supervision, making gradual progress to rebuild credibility after years of instability. But this time feels different. The scale, timing, and precision of these recent adjustments align almost perfectly with IMF reform benchmarks designed to modernize exchange frameworks and integrate emerging economies into digital banking networks. If Iraq is meeting those standards, it means the IMF sees readiness, a level of stability and transparency that allows for wider rate flexibility. It's not just about printing smaller notes or balancing reserves. It's about demonstrating to the global community that Iraq can manage its own monetary destiny responsibly and effectively. Now, let's look at the domino effect, because this isn't just an Iraq story anymore. Within days of the announcement, quiet activity started rippling through major Tier 1 banks. Institutions in the United States and Europe began updating their internal systems to include new verification fields for contract-based foreign exchange transactions. While that might sound like routine maintenance, insiders say the timing isn't random. Banks rarely modify their FX infrastructure unless they expect imminent regulatory or market changes. In other words, global financial systems are preparing to synchronize with Iraq's upcoming shift. And when these institutions get ready, it's not for rumors, it's for action. They're building the digital rails that will carry this reformed currency into mainstream circulation when the time is right. Observers have also noted how this reform ties into Iraq's digital dinar initiative, the modernization of its banking supply chain that began last year. Every dinar note, every electronic transfer, every cross-border payment is now traceable under the new digital compliance system. That kind of oversight wasn't possible a decade ago. Today, it's a cornerstone of Iraq's legitimacy in international finance. By introducing blockchain-style tracking for its monetary supply, Iraq is eliminating the black market risks that once distorted its exchange rate, and that's precisely why global investors are paying attention. A transparent, traceable currency system backed by rising oil output and stable governance equals confidence, and confidence is the first ingredient for revaluation. Let's talk about oil, because oil remains Iraq's financial heartbeat. Under this new exchange structure, Iraq is beginning to settle select energy agreements directly in dinar rather than relying exclusively on the dollar. This subtle change has enormous implications. It means the value of the dinar is now linked not just to domestic policy but to global energy trade. Each contract settled in dinar reinforces its credibility as a tradable currency. Think of it like compounding trust. Every time Iraq honors an international contract using its own currency at a strong internal rate, it adds another layer of global validation. That's how a regional currency becomes a contender on the world stage. One oil shipment, one infrastructure deal, one verified exchange at a time. The introduction of smaller denominations like the 50 dinar note seemed trivial at first, but it now fits perfectly into this larger plan. If Iraq's currency value rises significantly, large denominations like the 25,000 dinar note would become too valuable for everyday use. Smaller notes make daily commerce practical during a transition phase. This gradual approach, releasing new denominations before a rate shift, is a hallmark of organized revaluation. It allows markets to adapt smoothly and minimizes chaos when new rates eventually appear. It also signals to international observers that Iraq is preparing for a functional, sustainable rate increase, not a sudden speculative jump. This is strategic engineering, not coincidence. From a global market perspective, the timing couldn't be more interesting. 2025 has already seen turbulence in the Forex arena, with oil price adjustments, shifting interest rate policies, and renewed discussions about de-dollarization. Iraq's latest move slots neatly into that narrative. As nations diversify their reserve holdings and explore bilateral trade in local currencies, Iraq is positioning itself at the center of this transformation. It's not rebelling against global systems, it's evolving within them. By aligning with IMF protocols while asserting national independence, Iraq is signaling that it can play by international rules without sacrificing sovereignty. This delicate balance is exactly what modern monetary policy experts call strategic autonomy, and it's fast becoming Iraq's new economic identity. Let's take a closer look at how international investors are reacting. Over the past few days, online trading platforms and global investment forums have seen a spike in discussions about emerging market currencies, particularly the dinar. While most retail investors can't yet access the new contract rates, institutional players are already calculating potential exposure. Hedge funds that specialize in frontier markets are exploring ways to participate in Iraq's upcoming infrastructure bonds, which could be priced under the new valuation model. The sentiment is shifting from cautious optimism to calculated positioning. When large-scale funds start analyzing a nation's currency reform in detail, it's a clear sign that the story has moved from rumor to reality. Inside Iraq, the response has been equally electric. Business owners, especially in sectors tied to imports and exports, are beginning to sense the momentum. The government's Economic Communications Office has emphasized stability, reminding citizens that the reform process is staged and carefully managed. This reassurance is key, because public confidence underpins currency success. You can't revalue a currency unless the people using it every day believe in its strength. Reports suggest that local banks have already received updated software to accommodate new rate structures internally, ensuring that when the public phase begins, there won't be system disruptions. This kind of preparation demonstrates a level of foresight that Iraq hasn't showcased in years. The IMF's involvement, though not publicly detailed, is evident through the synchronization of Iraq's policy steps with global monetary standards. These milestones match the exact framework used in other successful currency transitions. For instance, before any country achieves open market revaluation, it must prove fiscal discipline, transparency, and anti-corruption control. Iraq has spent years strengthening all three. Foreign reserves now exceed $100 billion, inflation is contained, and the dinar's digital traceability has reached compliance benchmarks that rival some developed markets. When those metrics line up, the IMF typically supports broader market recognition. That's why analysts believe Iraq has just crossed the final, preparatory threshold before an international adjustment. Global Forex strategists are already describing this as a shockwave event, not because of immediate market volatility, but because it introduces a new player with credible fundamentals into a landscape long dominated by a handful of reserve currencies. When a resource-rich nation like Iraq modernizes its monetary system, it challenges old dynamics. Oil buyers now have an alternative settlement currency, regional partners gain a diversified trading option, and the global market becomes slightly less dependent on a single reserve currency. The ripple effect may be slow, but it's real, and as digital exchanges expand, the speed at which such transitions influence global flows is only increasing. Let's shift to what this means for ordinary dinar holders around the world. First, patience is key. While the infrastructure is being tested and verified, the public exchange rate hasn't yet changed. Attempting early conversions, or falling for speculative exchange offers, is risky. The safest approach is to hold, stay informed, and wait for official confirmation from recognized financial channels. When the official revaluation occurs, it will be public, documented, and validated through legitimate banks. This is not the phase for shortcuts. It's the final preparation stage, the quiet before the official global announcement. Those who stay patient and informed will benefit most when the doors officially open. Now, let's consider the macroeconomic implications. A successful revaluation and currency modernization would instantly boost Iraq's purchasing power, strengthen domestic wages, and attract foreign direct investment. Businesses operating in Iraq would find it easier to trade, pay, and import goods without massive conversion losses. It would also reshape Iraq's balance sheet with international lenders, potentially lowering borrowing costs and improving credit ratings. On a broader level, this move could inspire other regional economies to pursue similar reforms, sparking a domino effect across the Middle East and beyond. We're witnessing the early signs of a regional currency renaissance, and Iraq is leading it. Another layer to this story is the psychological impact on global traders. The foreign exchange market thrives on confidence and narrative momentum. When news like this breaks, it changes perception, and perception can shift capital. Even before any official public rate change, the mere confirmation of contract rate activity signals that Iraq has entered the endgame of its long reform process. That narrative alone attracts attention, speculation, and, eventually, liquidity. Once liquidity starts flowing, real adjustments follow. This chain reaction is why many experts describe currency reform as both a technical and psychological event, its numbers and trust working hand in hand. The most intriguing part of Iraq's move is the strategic timing. Doing this in late 2025 positions the country ahead of the global fiscal reset expected in 2026, when multiple central banks are planning digital currency rollouts and interest rate realignments. Iraq isn't waiting to be invited to that conversation, it's showing up ready. By proving operational readiness now, Iraq ensures that its currency is compatible with upcoming global systems. This foresight gives it leverage when negotiations about digital currency inclusion begin next year. Essentially, Iraq isn't just catching up, it's quietly leaping forward. International observers are also pointing out Iraq's strengthened relationship with regional economic powers. Trade ties with Gulf nations are deepening, and cross-border payment systems are being updated to accommodate direct dinar settlements. The closer Iraq's rate comes to parity with neighboring currencies, the easier it becomes to trade regionally without the dollar as a middleman. This integration isn't about isolation, it's about efficiency. and efficiency in the modern economy translates directly into profit and growth. The IMF knows this, and that's why they've been quietly endorsing Iraq's structured, data-driven approach to reform instead of a one-time shock event. On the ground, infrastructure updates are aligning with this financial transformation. New export terminals, energy grids, and logistics hubs are being designed to handle digital payments and multi-currency settlements. Each of these projects requires precise exchange management, and that's where the new contract rate framework comes in. It allows Iraq to lock in predictable values while still preparing for public rate flexibility. In plain terms, they're practicing the future before the curtain rises. It's like rehearsing a global performance with every note perfectly timed, and soon, that performance will be broadcast to the world's financial stage. Let's not underestimate the role of public education in this process. Iraqi citizens are being gradually introduced to the concept of modern banking, digital wallets, and real-time payments. The government has been promoting financial literacy campaigns that explain how to use digital platforms safely and effectively. This groundwork ensures that when the new rate becomes public, the population will be ready to operate confidently within it. That readiness reduces panic, speculation, and hoarding, three factors that can derail even the best planned currency reform. Iraq's leadership has learned from past mistakes, and this time, the communication strategy is as strong as the policy itself. As 2025 draws to a close, attention is now turning to Iraq's upcoming fiscal report due at year's end. Many analysts believe that this report could quietly reveal adjusted reserve valuations, hinting at the internal acknowledgement of a stronger dinar. If that happens, the first quarter of 2026 could mark the official unveiling of Iraq's new international exchange rate. But even before that, the release of the contract rate framework confirms that the transformation is already underway. The countdown has started, and global markets know it. It's not a matter of if anymore, it's a matter of when. So, where does this leave us? At the intersection of patience and history. Iraq's currency reform has evolved from speculation to structured reality. The IMF, global banks, and international investors are all watching closely as one of the most resource-rich nations on earth reclaims its monetary independence. The message is clear. Iraq isn't asking permission to rise, it's doing it on its own terms. For dinar holders, this is the moment you've waited for. For global traders, it's a signal to pay attention. And for anyone who doubted that a nation could rebuild its currency from the ground up, Iraq is about to prove them wrong. Stay tuned, stay ready, and remember, the global Forex shockwave has already begun.